talking that I want my country to be Viksit in 2047, to be Viksit, it is very important that we have a thriving and sustainable economy. Right? Now the point is, what is this thriving economy? What is sustainable economy? Now, we all know developed. We say developed India, Viksit Bharat. The developed का मतलब क्या है? Developed तभी होगा ना जब we, the people, are developed. So how can we be developed? We can be developed only if we have good economic conditions. Now, how can we have good economic conditions? We can have good economic conditions if we have good income, if we have good spending power, if we can enjoy the goods of life. Now, if we all have good things, obviously, the good plus good plus good will make the country better. Right? So, that's the objective. Now, to have that objective, in terms of economics, what is there? I think everybody, even if you have not studied economics, you are all familiar with 2-3 terms which are very commonly used. The GDP, the national income, growth rates. Now, what is this GDP? What is this national income? Simple. GDP, the full form of GDP is gross domestic product, which means the value of everything in a year within a country. That is also national income. I am not going into the technical details. The point is that national income, that is the aggregate of us, is it increasing over the years? Yes, it is increasing. Now the point is, if it goes on increasing, like हमारा salary का जैसा होता है, every year there is an increment. Similarly, the national income also has to grow every year, and that is an indication of goodness. Now, it's important that to be Viksit in 2047, we have a high and stable growth rates. It's also very important that we, the people of India, have diverse and well-paying opportunities. That is, whatever we do it nicely, and we have good returns. And to have this, it is very important that we have strong educational and training system. These are linked. Now, when we have a strong education training system, it is not just that if you have education. It is also very important that you are healthy enough to ensure that you can work. So, the third point is healthy workforce. And the last and the very important component, which is the first 4, growth rates, opportunities, education, and health, are part of when we say thriving economy. That is, the economy is growing. That means the economy is developing. And the last point is sustainable. Again, this is also something that you are always familiar with. Sustainable development, sustainable economy. Now, what is this meaning of sustainability? What is the meaning of sustainability?
I maintain that.
Pardon? Yes, to maintain something. Sustainability is nothing but whatever we do, we should not compromise with our future generation. Right? That is, the opportunities that we get, our future generation also should get the same opportunities. Now, for that, what is important? For providing the greatest quantum of general well-being with the least amount of resource use and environmental harm. So the point is, for sustainability, we have to ensure that we use environment in a प्रकृति का usage हम अच्छी तरह से करें. Now this brings me to a statement at the end of the word. Right? The point is, to have a thriving and sustainable economy, it's very important that we have good quality of life. Ensuring that this good quality of life today will also be enjoyed by our future generation. Now, the point is, see, how did I write the word life? Right? Life, spelling is L-I-F-E. And in English, when I'm writing a sentence, I should not write it this way. This is basically an acronym. This is an acronym which became more popular during India's presidency of G20. You know, G20 is a world forum and the presidency rotates every year, right? This year it's South Africa who is supposed to hand it over to USA. Earlier it was Brazil, before Brazil it was India. During India's presidency, the deliberations came out with this concept which is known as life. What is this life? Life stands for lifestyle for environment. Okay, so whatever we do today, we have to keep the environment in our mind. Okay, now this is the backdrop of having our economy. Now, what do we see? We are all, that's my introduction. Now, since we are all belonging to the higher education sector, I would like to spend 1 or 2 minutes on the status of higher education in our country. Regarding higher education, we have several sources of information. One of the major sources of information is the All India Survey of Higher Education reports, which come out after a few years. The last report that came out was using the data of 2021-22, and it was published in June 24. What did it show? What did it show? That across our country, we have almost 4.33 crore students, which is increasing over the years. Our country, the population, from 2023, we are the largest populated country in the world, and student enrollment is also growing. Out of these, 2.07 crores are women, right? Which is again very interesting because the proportion of women in higher education is increasing over the years, right? Since this is increasing over the years, that is very interesting because see, 2.07 crores is almost 47%. But in 2014-15, the proportion of women in higher education was only around 32%. So in the last 7 to 8 years, there has been substantial increase in the enrollment of women in higher education. And this enrollment of women is highest at the PG level. Right? Okay. Now, again, the gross enrollment ratio for this year ages is around 28.4%, and the gender parity index, which indicates the ratio between male and female student for this year, is 1.01. That is, females, particularly for this age, is higher enrollment, right? For the national average, it is 1.01, but for our state, it is 0.89, indicating that enrollment of females are lesser as compared to males in Tripura. Okay. Fine. Now, we have higher education, and we all know our higher education is divided into various streams: arts, science, commerce, technology, etc. See, what is the status? At the undergraduate level, the maximum number of students is for the Bachelor of Arts degree, followed by science, commerce, engineering, and technology. And at the PG level, the enrollment is highest for the social science. And social science includes economics, political science, education, history, and these issues. At the PhD level, for PhD students, enrollment is highest for engineering. Right? So this is our status. But the big part, and particularly very much important to the context of economics, is even today, the large number of students, the large chunk of students are enrolled at the government institutions. Right? And when we are talking government institutions, 73% of the students enrolled in our country are in government institutions. Even though the number of private institutions in the higher education sector has been increasing over the years. Right? 58.6% of all the universities are government owned. This university is government owned. I come from a government owned university. But that is changing. And within this university system also, in our country, the largest number of universities come under state control. That is state public universities. That's the backdrop of higher education in our country. Now, what does that bring? This brings me to a scenario that we are all familiar with. We are all familiar with. We are all stakeholders of the higher education sector, right? And many of you are experienced teachers, so you know that these are data that we have seen, but there are a lot of things which are beyond data, right? And within Beyond data, what do we have? We have several, I don't say them as problems. I don't consider things to be problem. I consider that to be a challenge. Challenge which we need to overcome. Now, what are the challenges that we have? And these are big factors. Why these are challenges, I'll come to it later. Right? What are the challenges? The challenges are our curriculum, in most of the cases, are outdated. Right? If many of the syllabus, many of the papers includes syllabuses or contents which even not just my parents, my grandparents have also studied. A lot of things continues which are not in tune with the requirement of the modern times. Again, another big challenge is there is huge inequity regarding access of quality education. Our country is large, widespread, but access to education obviously is not, it is expected, it is not equal. But what happens? Those who do not have access remains deprived. That's the point. Often teaching methods are ineffective and these result in a large number of dropouts. Large number of dropouts. Again, often we see that students who are enrolled, who are pursuing their studies, they do not have the adequate skills which are necessary for maintaining a good quality of life, which is our target, which is something which we always want. There are also a lot of problems in our examination system. There is a tendency for most of the students to learn things by heart without understanding. And what they do in the examination hall is they, okay, which obviously what happens is once you vomit, it's out. You don't take it back. Right? Okay. So this is a challenge that we have. What do we do? I do this. No. No. I have one more slide here. How do I go back? Yeah, I need this. This I had. Yeah. Now, we have listed a few challenges, but the challenges continue. Another challenge, as many of you will agree, that we teachers often lack adequate training, resources, and support. Well, this program is trying to address this challenge. The issue of bureaucratization of education system, definitely, as teachers, many of you might have faced. In many of the times, our institutions, see, we have, what do we say for an institution? The institutions are mainly for the students. But in many of the institutions, often it is same, the students are at the back. Things are not prioritized for the students. In many of the institutions. Rather, not many, in most of the institutions, I should say, students are not a priority. Right? There are challenges relating to integration of technology, but we cannot run away from technology today. And a very important thing, even though there are issues which are being taken care of nowadays, is that in our education system, I said we need a healthy workforce. Now, health is not just physical health. Health is also mental. And that is something which our education system, the existing education system, the education system that we have grown through, often has ignored. Right? So, education systems often ignore mental health of students, and it misses out in adapting to the changing societal norms. Right? The society, the economy, the world is extremely dynamic, but our education system often is very static in this, misses out on the dynamism. Now this this brings me to my next proposition, which is relating to, I'll say to it. This, for it? Yeah. So, based on these challenges, based on these challenges, based on the scenario that we have in our higher education, based on the goals that we have set, the government of India came up with something, which is there in the title of my presentation as well as in the program schedule that we have set. And I'm sure many of you have seen this chart. Right? Where did you say it? This is available in any of the websites of higher education. This is available in any of the documents that we see relating to National Education Policy 2020. The National Educational Policy has 10 thrust areas, and these are the thrust areas. So why is it that National Education Policy came up? National Education Policy had identified the challenges that they existed. Now, to address these challenges, how do we overcome these challenges? Came up National Education Policy 2020. It took a lot of time in coming up. Okay. And what has been identified is the thrust areas. Now, what does the National Education Policy say? I don't want to repeat a lot of things. I think we'll come to it in some of the slides. But the point is, the thrust is, or the focus is, to eradicate the challenges that we have. What are the challenges we have listed? And see, what are the thrust areas? The first and foremost point is multidisciplinary and holistic education. The second is digital empowerment and online education. The third is skill development and employability. The fourth is research, innovation, and entrepreneurship. The fifth is capacity building of teachers for quality education. Sorry, how do I go back? Then comes governance and autonomy. After that, quality, ranking, and accreditation. Equitable and inclusive education. Promotion of Indian languages and Indian knowledge system. Last but not the least, internationalization of education. Now, this is, if we look into all the points, this is what the topic of the day is. Right? You have assigned me something on institutional readiness. Right? Now, if this is the thrust, our job is to see how is our institution ready to implement the thrust areas. Right? Starts with multidisciplinarity, holistic education, digital empowerment, accreditation, research, innovation, skill, employability, governance, autonomy, equity, inclusivity, and IKS, Indian languages, internationalization. Big targets, big thrust. Right. To go further, how much time is it? What is the time? So, to go into it, what do we see? We see, I'll just talk about the first point. What is this holistic education? See, we have identified the challenges. It's not me. I did not identify the challenges. The challenges have been identified by extremely talented and knowledgeable persons, right? Who are the phenomena in their own domain. Now, what is the point? The point is our students. Our students are often not ready to face the challenges. And that is why it is important to have holistic education, which emphasizes the development of the person, Not just the postgraduate of economics, not just Mr. X who is MA economics, but Mr. X who is a knowledgeable person having a degree in economics. Can I make you understand the difference? Mr. X, PG economics. Mr. X, a person who is knowledgeable, who is well endowed with a degree in economics. But his knowledge or learning is not just economics, it is economics plus. It is not just Sanskrit, it is Sanskrit plus. It is not just chemical engineering, it is chemical engineering plus. It is not just mathematics, mathematics plus. Now, what is this plus? The plus is the allied. The plus is very big. It's not possible for everybody to have all components of plus. But that plus should include whatever is going to facilitate in the development of that person. Now, what is that plus? It should ensure that the subject intellectual acumen should be there should be emotional maturity, the physical condition should be good, mental strength, definitely, social adaptability, and last but not the least, spiritual awakening, which has been one of the big pillars of India's, what should I say, not just development, India's transition for the last 10,000 years. Right? So, it is expected that the student who undergoes education under the national education policy will have not just the knowledge of the subject, but should try to imbibe the features which are listed here. Right? Subject, mental maturity, physical strength, spirituality, and definitely emotional maturity. This is needed to prepare the students lead a fulfilling life. Right? And only if they are satisfied by themselves, they can contribute to the society. This is very much modeled in the traditional Indian way of learning, and I take pride in saying that I'm fortunate to be a student of Shantiniketan, where Tagore, almost 120 years back, thought of this kind of education. Right? Even today, Vishwabharati, it is the first central university, but it's beyond central university. This holistic education, holistic approach has been in practice, particularly at the school level, for long. Right? Now, this is important. Why is this holistic education important? It is important because it combines academic life skills, values, and character building. It encourages exploration, innovation, and helps in problem solving. Now, our students, we say that our students often have degrees, but they fail in meeting the requirements of the world, because most of the learning that they have is by heart. They have, in Bangla, what we say, mukhস্থ করে শিখেছে. What happens? পরীক্ষা শেষ, knowledge is out. Right? So, the objective of holistic education is to ensure that we have well-rounded individuals. These well-rounded individuals will definitely have better personal growth, will take more responsibility for the society, will ensure that the world is a better place to live in, and this holistic education will also give that kind of spiritual awakening where the individual is expected to be accepting the fact that there is no way to learn. This is very important. Once we have a degree, once we get some kind of recognition, that's not happening. The process of learning continues. Okay? And when we are happy to be a lifelong learner, it definitely helps in managing stress, which is a big, big, big risk and challenge of today. Now, when we are talking about, I just thought of having these two slides, the next two slides, particularly because there are a lot of confusion in these terms. See, the first point, I'm just going to focus on the first of the thrust areas, the multidisciplinarity and holistic learning. We spoke about the holistic learning aspect. Now, you hear a lot of these terms, multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary. This discipline, what is this discipline? We all have our own disciplines, right? I'll just again take 2-3 minutes to distinguish the various types of disciplinary approach that we have. The first, the traditional learning that we have, being as a student of economics, I have grown or I have studied in a system which is known as intradisciplinary. What is that interdisciplinary? Interdisciplinary, see, the models which have been used here is like a cycle spoke, right? We have all seen cycles, how one cycle, one spoke is connected with the other chain and it moves around, right? And this is something which we can also have in our own day-to-day life. As an interdisciplinary, what is happening? It's a one-spoke model. Economics is being taught within the theory and content of economics only. Right? So I learn to say what are the factors behind demand and supply based on the law of demand and law of supply, understanding the marginal liquidity, understanding the diminishing returns, and blah blah blah. Only economics. Right? I don't know about Sanskrit, but probably that has been the approach for most of us. That has been the approach for engineering. Now comes the second content, which is multidisciplinary. Now, see how this is happening. Multidisciplinary. This interdisciplinary or intradisciplinary is a single spoke wheel which is moving around. Now, in multidisciplinary, what is that? We are having several academic fields adjacent to each other. This is Sanskrit, this is economics, sorry, about Jatavana. Yeah. কি হচ্ছে? This is economics. Shit. আরে 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 আরে। Yeah. टच करो ना। स्क्रॉल करने से नहीं आ रहा है। Huh? No problem. Leave it. So the point is, this is economics, this is Sanskrit, this is chemistry, this is physical education. Now what is happening? They are all placed adjacent to each other. Now what is happening? Say, if economics move, the spokes are in this manner. The movement of this is going to move this. Right? Earlier, what was it? Independent. Now, they are coming in tandem. One moving is moving the other. So, this is the multidisciplinary approach. But they are independent in their own way. Right? Economics is being analyzed by economics. Sanskrit is being analyzed by Sanskrit. But what is happening? The impact of economics is being understood by Sanskrit. The impact of Sanskrit is being understood by chemistry. And this is the multidisciplinary approach. The point is, how do we behave in an institution? How do we interact? My understanding of economics might help you in analyzing something related to yourself. That's the multidisciplinary approach. The point is, it examines an issue from a multiple perspective without making a concentrated effort to systematically integrate. It's not that I'm saying that you study Sanskrit as a student of economics. I'm saying we study economics, you study Sanskrit, but let us interact together so that we can all move in tandem. The third is cross-disciplinary. See, what is cross-disciplinary? A single academic field is used as a lens to understand other academic fields. See the connection here. Same thing, economics, Sanskrit, chemistry, physical education. Now the student of chemistry is trying to understand all the other subjects from the point of chemistry. The student of economics is trying to understand why it is that the student of economics who is trying to understand. That's the cross-disciplinary one. It examines an issue typically German. And the example which is very interesting. I don't know whether you know or not, very recently, last week itself, yeah, not last week, in the last week of November, a colleague of mine from the Department of Music in Tripura University got a patent. Okay, he's a faculty of music. He's a very good classical singer, vocalist, Dr. Ravindra Bhattacharya. Now, what is the patent that he got? His patent was using AI, for a string instrument. So what is that? AI is not music. AI is not economics. AI is absolutely science and technology. Now what is that? He is using music is using another discipline to understand the logic. Right? It's a cross-disciplinary approach which has been used. Right? And remember, when we spoke about the thrust areas of NEP, technology, digital empowerment was one of the thrust areas. Okay. So, such kind of interactions, we all, I'm sure everybody has heard the musician A.R. Rahman. Sure, everybody has heard. Famous songs of A.R. Rahman? Jai. Okay. Prior to that, Bill Chodas. Now, A.R. Rahman is said to have been using computers for his music composition since the 1990s. Electronic sounds. What is that? It's not composing on the harmonica or any other instrument. He is composing using science. That's a cross-disciplinary approach. But do we generally treat that in our educational institutions, such an approach? We do not. Right? Brings me to the third one. Now we come to interdisciplinary. See, earlier what was it? The first one. The second one moving the other. The third is all four, but analyzing it from one perspective. Here what is happening? Interdisciplinary. Multiple academic fields are interacting. Now they are more combined. Earlier it was this is moving. Right? Here what is happening? This is combined. And each is intricately linked. This is interdisciplinary. And interdisciplinary examines an issue from multiple perspectives, leading to a systematic effort to integrate the alternative side. To integrate the alternative perspectives into a unified or coherent framework of analysis. So the difference between multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary is, in multidisciplinary, one subject influences other. And here what is happening is having an impact on other. But here what is happening? They are interacting together. That's the difference. The last but not the least is transdisciplinary. And in transdisciplinary, what is happening? We are not just thinking of academics, but we are bringing in non-academic fields into the process. And that is why you see they are merged, but the points of interactions are often beyond the academic circuits. And that is something, again, maybe many of you have heard in the NEP 2020, there is an option or involving some special people as professor of practice. I'll explain that later. What is that professor of practice? right? What is that? It's transdisciplinary, where we are not just thinking of academicians, but we are looking beyond academics. We are looking beyond academics. Okay, so this is the approaches that we have. And this is, I just thought of talking or bringing this slide here to give you a flavor of the various disciplinary approaches that we generally have. Now let's go back to NEP. Now the point is, when Dr. Suman gave me the topic, he asked me to speak about the institutional readiness. Now NEP is very well known. One of the targets of NEP is to increase the number of students in higher education. Our target is to take that gross enrollment ratio to 50% by 2025. Okay, it's a very ambitious target that I can say. But obviously, what do? We, as stakeholders of the higher education sector, we are to adopt, we have to act accordingly. Now, where do I start off? NEP 2020 gives us the mandate, the thrust areas, that these are the 10 things which are our objectives. Now, we, as part of the higher education institute, where do we start? In my understanding, it is very important that we start with a self-assessment. And maybe because I'm a student of economics, that is why I'm starting with this point. To make a self-assessment. In self-assessment is something which is very much that we do for any kind of economic studies, basically something which is known as, in our parlance, known as SWOC, SWOC, strength, weakness, opportunities, and challenges. Okay. Here, I'm not pointing on all the four. I'm just talking about the institution should make an assessment about its deficits and surpluses. That is the gaps and the strengths. On what issues? The infrastructure, the curriculum, the faculty capacities, and definitely the stakeholders' resilience. Stakeholders means that includes the students, the teachers, the administrators, the locality. Everybody is a stakeholder. The government, the society is a stakeholder. Now, why it is very important to understand the infrastructure. See, we have 10 goals. Now, whether we can really address to this goal, we need to have an understanding of what is our infrastructure. We really need to know what is our position as a faculty member. What are our standings? Where do we look ahead? We really know. See, we have pointed out the challenges where we say our students are often not ready for the world. One of the major points, challenges, was outdated content. So we really need to modify the curriculum accordingly. And what is our status? The curriculum that we are practicing right now, is it okay? Is it good? Is it bad? Or is it ugly? Whatever. Now, this is very important to identify what are our deficits, what are our strengths. This brings us to the next stage where, after identifying our resources, assessing our resources, we need to restructure. We need to restructure ourselves based on the guidelines that are part of it. The NCRF. The NCRF is National Credit Framework, which is again provided by the ministry, where our contents and our syllabuses, our curriculums are linked in a certain framework where students are expected to learn a certain level which will enable them to earn credits. There are various levels of National Credit Framework. Now, a very important feature of NEP 2020, I don't remember whether I have included that. Is this the only class on NEP 2020 or is there other classes on NEP? Okay. So in NEP 2020, I'll just take, I think everybody knows, but I'll just, why this NCRF comes into the content, I believe everybody is familiar with the basic structure of NEP 2020. Are you familiar with the basic structure of NEP 2020? What do we say? Generally, One thing I'll just repeat, it's known to everybody. What happens at NEP 2020 says a student can leave after first year. And when he leaves after first year, he will get a I'm asking, if he leaves it after the first year, what does he do? In the second year, if he leaves with it. In the third year, he leaves with it. And the undergraduate program, under NEP 2020 is expected to be 4 years. When he completes 4 years, what does he get? There are two options. There are two options. One is with honors, and the other is honors with research. A person who gets honors with research can directly go to PhD. But one with honors will have to undergo a postgraduate course for pursuing PhD. The content, the structures of the fourth year has to be different for honors and honors with research. Okay. The practical content has to be more for honors with research. The learning, the research component, methodology, project component, etc. Now, NEP 2020 also brings in certain additional features for the first time, where we have a component of skill enhancement courses. We have a component of ability enhancement courses. We have a component of value-added courses. Right? So these are new features on NEP 2020. And since I believe the institutions that you come from have already adopted NEP 2020. So these are part of the curriculum that you face. So no point. But the point is, when somebody leaves after first year with the certificate, it is expected that he or she will have certain credit. That credit has to be matched with his learning and skills. And that is to be assigned with National Credit Framework. And the other is NHEQF, which is the National Higher Education Quality Framework. That is, when we are providing the education to the students, we have to maintain the quality as per the curriculum. Right? The second is, we need to restructure. I'm talking about restructuring. That is, how is our institutions ready? So we have to make sure that the curriculum gaps are to be aligned with NCRF and NHEQF. Infrastructures need to be aligned with digital system. Today we cannot run away from digitalization. Right? Pedagogy, our approach to teaching has to be aligned with the need of the day. LMS is Learning Management System, which provides us with a framework to adapt or integrate the students and disseminate our teaching materials to the student and also conduct their assessments. It is also very important that we restructure ourselves, our institutions, in terms of the nature of data that we use. Right? It's very, very important. Right? So this restructuring comes into the foray. And when we are talking about the institution, it is very important that first we make an assessment, we restructure, and these assessment and restructure is possible only and only if the governance aspect is taken care of. Now, what is that governance? That governance is at the institutional level. The governance is also at the extra institutional level, that is the levels to which the institutions are bound to. But particularly when we are taking note of governance issues, there are 4 points which I would like the institutions to take care of. One is the facility of ODL. Right? Now, but there are certain rules and regulations regarding ODL, open distance learning. It's not that all institutions can provide ODL. There are guidelines. But if that institution fulfills the requirement of ODL, they have to align themselves accordingly. The second is from the point of the students, which is the academic bank of credit. Because the NEP 2020 is not only allowing the student to exit but it is also allowing something known as MEE, multiple entry, multiple exit. That is, if they leave after first year, they are allowed to come back after a gap for the second year. Also, they are allowed to move to some other institutes, and that is possible only if the ABC content, the Academic Bank of Credit, is aligned in unison. The third is, which is again very important because the thrust areas calls for research. What is that? This is the National Research Foundation. So the institution, the governments, that is the institutional bosses have to ensure that there is alignment with NRF. The last, again very important, is the institution innovation centers or councils. I don't remember exactly what is a council or center. But the point is, trust area. Innovations are very important. Now, innovations, you can innovate only if you have a conducive environment. So the governance at the institution has to ensure that you have the IIC, which is going to create an environment where you can experiment, where you can innovate, as a teacher, as a stakeholder. So this is my guideline for how do we get ready for institutional activities. Now, this brings me to my experiences at the university. Because I, first and foremost, I'm not an expert on NEP. I'm also in the process of learning, right? And I'm learning every day on NEP. Now, at Tripura University, what happened? Now, here it's very important. I missed out. When we are talking of the institutions and its readiness, it is very important to understand what type of institutions are we. Right? What type of institutions are we? Are we a teaching institution? Are we a research institution? Are we a teaching and research institutions? Are we a unitary institution? Now, what is teaching? We all understand. Research, we all understand. Now, as members of higher education, we all know, as stakeholders, we have teaching, we have research. What is unitary? Unitary is the institution by itself is providing the other. The other category is whether you are an affiliated institution. Like we have the PG programs in our campus, we have the research programs in our campus, we do have a few undergraduate programs in our campus, but we are an affiliating university with more than 50 institutions of the state aligned to us. So what is our role? Our role is not just teaching, our role is not just research, our role is also to look that the NEP program, NEP courses, NEP programs are run at our affiliated colleges. And remember, it's again very interesting, the NEP 2020 envisages, dreams or visualizes that by 2035 or beyond, this format of affiliating universities are going to come down. And most of the institutes are going to develop as multidisciplinary units. The first topic. And multidisciplinary is you are today National Sanskrit University. You might be having some other disciplines as aligned, but it's not a full-fledged multidisciplinary unit. I don't know how things are going to open up in another 10 years, but that's one of the goals, that multidisciplinary units or some kind of cluster kind of units will be formed to facilitate unitary institutes. Right? Now, our experience, we started off in 2023-24, 9 June, it was adopted. The 4-year undergraduate program is running in the 23 degree colleges. That currently we have the 3rd batch. Most of these colleges are government institutes, and very truly, with every day we are having new experience and new learning, and we are modifying accordingly. We do have several challenges relating to physical assets, physical infrastructure, and very, in a big way, in terms of human infrastructure. There are ample shortage of teachers in our affiliated communities. Examination, learning management is also something that we are undergoing because the examination process is divided into internal and external. This internal examination is the ratio is 40-60 nowadays, and a lot of assignment is with the affiliated institutions, and there are plus as well as there are minuses, right? And conducting exams is a big challenge for us because what happens is it's not just you conduct exam, you need to evaluate, and to evaluate you need examiners. Now, if there are shortage of teachers, the challenges that we have, if we have shortage of teachers, well, you can meet up teacher deficiencies with guest lecturers. But guest lecturers are not allowed to be examiners. So, even though you have classes with guest lecturers, you do not have evaluation of answer scripts with guest lecturers. So, the burden increases manifold, and that often leads to a lot of delays in results and etc. Right? Which is definitely not desired. But many a times we are helpless. The new courses that we have, you know about. There is a difference between contractual and guest faculty. No, guest faculties, if they do not have the UGC conditions, that is, if they are not next year qualified or PhD, they cannot be examiners. Yes. If they have net and it depends on the discretion of the university. It depends on the discretion of the university because there is one thing which is very important. Because evaluation is a confidential activity. Right? When you are tied to an institution, your service is rented. Right? As a guest faculty, theoretically you are a freelancer. So there are certain, obviously I don't understand that, but those experts in laws and jurisprudence, they understand this way. So this is a big challenge that we have.
Service condition is fine.
Yes. So see, yours is an individual. No, because it's a unitary university. Ours is just they are not related to Tripura University. They are a guest lecturer of some affiliated institutions. A guest faculty of Ramthakur College has nothing to do with Tripura. Okay, so that is a technical difference. Right. Okay. Then there is also one more thing. It's not just the challenges that we have. See, you have faculty members. Our colleges are spread across the country, across the state. If an examiner, if a person who is a teacher at Shabroom, if he is here in Tripura University for central evaluation, he has to come down here. He has to stay here. He is on deputation. He might have some physical challenges. Who is going to take care of that? So there are a lot of hindrances that we have. Lots and lots of hindrances. Okay, but obviously these are challenges. Well, value-added skill, I don't want to add something, but a very important component of the national education policy and the 4 years undergraduate program is this internship, which is newly added. When we started off the NEP 2020 in 2023, it was said that internship is to be applied only for students who are exiting. That is, if somebody leaves after first year or second year. But in December 2023, a mandate came from UGC where it said that everybody in the third year, if they go into the third year, that is, if they exit, that is fine. But if they do not exit but move into third year, they have to undergo compulsory internship. And understand, try to think that Tripura is a very small state. And facilitating internship for almost 30,000 students in 1 year is a big challenge. That's a very big challenge. Okay, so, but still, these are experiences, right? Okay, now this brings me to the concepts. I think many of the concepts are already, we have spoken. So, what is that? There is challenge in course of, we said how the institution should be ready. But why I'm sharing this? I'm sharing this from my experiences. The institutions, what are the challenges that you face? You face that there are, accessibility is a challenge across. Often, even though you have a lot of inequity issues which come crop up. COVID-19 brought into India something which not just me, I think most of you could never visualize as a student, online education. Right. Forget me as a student. I think most of you as a student did not have that experience of online education. But as a teacher, you started teaching online. But when we started off teaching online, many of our students used to say, yes, sir, it was lockdown. They had to move long distances to get the connectivity. So digital divide still stays, even though we say that digitalization is a very important component of NEP 2020. Language barriers, yes. NEP stresses a lot on teaching in Indian languages. But we do not have adequate study materials in Indian languages. So that is a big challenge even today. Faculty shortage, I think no point, I don't know what is the status of your university, but it's a big challenge for the state as well as for the country as a whole, right? And this results in many of the time-bound outcome, which I was talking about examination and results. This leads to a lot of challenges. Institutional autonomy, again, is a big challenge many a times because we have a lot of government colleges. Now, government colleges, even though the principals are full-fledged principles, but they are linked to the government. So for anything and everything, they need to seek prior approvals, and this often hampers it. Research environment, even though NEP 2020 says for 4 years degree program with research, calls for more research component at the undergraduate level, but I don't know how is the research environment, particularly at institutions that provide only undergraduate teaching. For your institution, it's a university, you have PG, the situation is different. But for undergraduate colleges, it's a big challenge. And last but not the least, as a student of economics, I can never run away from the last word. Okay, this is always a challenge. This is always a challenge, and we stay on. But to me, what is the biggest challenge? The biggest challenge is our students. The biggest challenge that our country faces today is unemployment. But for many of us, particularly the people of economics, unemployment is not the problem. The problem is many of these unemployeds are unemployable. They are unemployable because they have degrees but they don't have learning. And as a teacher, I have no shame in admitting that I'm also responsible for it. Because I also want my student to pass. I am not bothered how much they have really learned. I think most of we are not very concerned about how much they really ready for the job market. They try to mug up answers. As I say, come to the examination hall, vomit, and immediately after the paper they forget what they have written. They often, right, learning is least important. Because most of the learning that they have also is not useful for the practical world. This is where NEP expects better work. That is why NEP is bringing in holistic education, NEP is suggesting multidisciplinarity, NEP is suggesting internship, NEP is suggesting skill enhancement. What happens, as I have already said, large number of Indian youth have degrees, but often lack the basic knowledge. And they move from one class to another, pass one exam after the another, but after the completion of their student life, what happens? As they move into the job market, they face challenges. And the challenge is not just for them, it is also for their parents who have buffered them into education for 16, 17 years. The country which have provided a lot of subsidy in providing them free, if I can say the term, to an extent free education, and the society. Because even with degrees, they are not capable of the level of productivity that they should have. That is the biggest challenge. Okay, now this is understood by everybody. And that is why NEP suggests an alternative roadmap. When we talk of NEP and the challenges, you know, yeah. So what are we going to stop with the challenge? No. We have to move beyond. And that is why NEP comes here. That is why institutions have to play a role. So what is very important for here? It is important, obviously, again, as a student of economics, I cannot start or run away from the fact of funding. Right? It is very important that we have equitable funding to ensure that the deficits, if the institution can identify any, can be addressed. We need to ensure that admission process is inclusive to ensure equity as well as maintain gender balance. It's very important to develop the regional language courses, and I'm happy to share that I think there are a lot of efforts nowadays being taken up to ensure that a lot of the reading materials that we have for many of the major subjects which are English oriented are being converted into Indian languages. Okay, there are a lot of efforts which are being taken up. Coordination is extremely needed, and that is again institutional readiness. Specific infrastructural steps. Once you identify what is your lacunae, take note of. A very important or an, I'm not sure whether how far this is applicable for NSU right now, but there is a suggestion from UGC as well as Ministry of Education to have this AEDPs, which is Apprenticeship Embedded Degree Program. Now, you know, we have, I'll just take 1 minute here because last week I had a workshop on that. What is this? We have brought in internship component in our undergraduate program where the students are sent for 120 hours to work, right, as part of their curriculum. Now, apprenticeship means more time for work during your study. This AEDP suggests that one semester, at least a minimum of one semester, is to be spent in the job market as an apprentice. And 20 credits, the total credit is at least 20 credit is going to come from his experiences as an apprentice. Minimum 6 months time. This is a kind of training, this is a kind of education which is very much in practice in Japan for ages. Right? You see, we all, which has been adopted in Korea also. In Japan, is one of the most advanced Asian countries. Electronics, we have been using a lot of Japanese servers and Japanese electronics over the ages. Now, Japan has a system where students are tied up to the industry from their student lives. And they are trained, the courses and the curriculum are catered or structured as per the requirement of the industry. Right? This is possible only in case of unitary universities right now. And I would suggest you to go into, if possible, if you are interested, you can explore the website of Mumbai University, particularly at NSU, because Mumbai University is one of the pioneers in initiating this AEDP courses, right? Whether anything relating to your subject or something, if you can think of, if you can get any kind. Also, it is very important that we have coordinated approach for the postgraduate program because there is an option for students to leave after there is the alternative is students move to fourth year. So are we going to have PG program for 1 year? Are we going to have PG program for 2 years? This is again a lot of institutional coordination is required. Many of the institutes, and this is something that we are really working upon at Tripura University right now. Many of the institutes are thinking of having two types of PG programs, 1 year and 2 years. Now, how do we integrate? Who are going to, what should be the syllabus, whether there should be similarity of curriculum between the 4th year and the 1st year PG? How do we go about it? So there are a lot of things which request coordination, right? So that's a way forward. Now to finish it off, I think I have read a lot of, what is the time? Yeah, I'll just finish off in 1 minute. So to finish it off, I feel that it's very important that whatever work that we do under NEP, how do we prepare our institutes? Employability of student has to be the primary thing. That's, in my understanding, the most important. It is very important that we integrate ICT, that is the information and communication technology, in the right manner. And it is very important because technology is a boon. The technology can be a gain. We can use technology for gains. We can misuse technology for ruins. Right? So we need to ensure the technology is to be used for effective communication and information and not for spreading misinformation. Right? It's very important that institutions focus on trio, teaching, research, and innovation. And in my understanding, if there are offices specific for these 3 activities, it would be of great help to the institutions, right? 3 centers or 3 offices. Resource, how the institutions are going to manage, centrally funded, one way. But NEP also provides, because I've been taking a few classes on how do educational institutes provide for funds, generate their own funds. Because the government across is withdrawing, and a lot of private institutions have come up in the last 10-15 years, right? So how do institutions generate somewhat additional funds for their own requirement? So resource mobilization is very important, but the most important definitely for NEP, in my understanding, is that the educators, that we teachers should be willing to ensure that our students have a good quality of life so that we have a Viksit Bharat in 2047. Thank you. I'll be very happy if there are anything that you would like me to talk again. Yeah, that is what is even the Ministry of Education is suggesting, to start with AEGP programs for the general degree courses. Okay, now the point is, what are the programs that you are going to play? Now you have to identify that what are the programs that you will develop for the students of your discipline. What is their job market? Right? Accordingly, for example, student of economics, we might have a program. We might have a program which is very linked to finances, right? So what is happening is, with any financial organization, what is happening? They are understanding the nuances of finances, right? And that he is learning how to make projections, he is learning how to make assessments of interest rates, he is learning how to make tax calculations, he is learning how to make stock market activities. So that is going to make sure that he goes into the job market immediately after uh, this degree. And the point is, it depends on the subject experts to identify what are the programs that you can develop specific to your courses. Right? Now, obviously, you cannot start with a big bang. And particularly at Tripura, we cannot be of a very big bang. But for example, a kind of apprenticeship in there, not AEDP, but there is 4 years integrated program for BSc BEd or BA BA, which are also a kind of apprenticeship, kind of. Okay.
तो उसमें तो हम लोग टीचिंग करते हैं उनको पढ़ाते हैं तो उनका इमीडिएटली प्रैक्टिकल होता है
That is what I'm
ये कर
saying.
सकता हूँ और ये आगे भी इसको कंटिन्यू कर सकता
That is what I'm saying.
सेल्फ कॉन्फिडेंस आ जाता है
That is what I'm saying. Even when I was in that meeting, I suggested that in my university, we have 2 programs for BVOC. Okay, that is Bachelor of Vocational Studies. These BVOC programs, we have 2 subjects. One is on data technology and the other is on film processing and film production and film editing. Right? Now, if we can transform this BVOC courses into AEDP courses, what happens is, we can put this boys and girls, it's a 3-year degree BVOC. You can have a 4-year degree. What is happening? 6 months they spend in some film production units, with some film producers, with some film companies, where they learn the nuances of film production, film editing, etc. Right? Right? For radar technology, we send them to some American tires. Okay? Or you send them to Hindustan Packets. But the point is they are learning what is real life. And then we are asking the industry to tell us that what should be their course curriculum. Right? You can think for your subject. Now this is extremely subject specific. And outside that, if I am a setting, I can never suggest about any other subject. I can speak about my economics. Right? That is why I suggested that you can look into the website of Mumbai University because the Vice Chancellor of Mumbai University, because on 28th of November, when in a workshop or conference at UGC, he suggested that Mumbai University has brought in 72 courses. Okay, and remember, Mumbai is an industrial region, and they have a lot of employment opportunities, employment careers. But it's not that anything is. At the peripheral regions also, we really need to innovate. We really need to innovate for the existence of our institutions. Or else we don't know what is there in another regions for the institutions.
इसी रिगार्डिंग जैसे कि जो हम कहते हैं एम्प्लॉयमेंट प्रोसेस को जो है एम्प्लॉयमेंट प्रोसेस को जो है इंट्रोड्यूस कर रहा है इसमें चैलेंज भी देखते हैं हम जैसे सिंगल स्ट्रीमलाइन यूनिवर्सिटी जो है तो रिसेंटली ऐसा भी जो है यूजीसी ने सर्कुलर भी हम लोगों ने देखा इसमें कहा गया सिंगल स्ट्रीमलाइन यूनिवर्सिटी जो है सिंगल स्ट्रीमलाइन यूनिवर्सिटी जनरेट है भविष्य में शायद ना रहे
Yes.
तो उसमें एक चैलेंज संस्कृत यूनिवर्सिटीज के लिए हो रहा है संस्कृत यूनिवर्सिटीज को एक प्रकार से सोचिए जो मेजर जो है संस्कृत लैंग्वेज संस्कृत शास्त्र है वहाँ पर अगर जब भी हम एम्प्लॉयमेंट कोर्सेज को इंट्रोड्यूस करना चाहते हैं एक वन प्रकार जो है एक प्रकार का जो है फोबिया है और शास्त्र जो है थोड़ा जो है अलग अलग हो जाए तो ये एक प्रकार चैलेंज भी लगता है लोगों को
Definitely. Definitely. Now, what is happening is that is what I'm saying that the entire process of NEP 2020 is evolving. It is continuously changing because of the dynamic nature. Right? Now, see, when you are talking about your institution, I say what is going to happen with IGIDR, Indira Gandhi Institute for Development Research, which is an RBI, Reserve Bank of India funded institute specifically for economics. Right? We have a lot of engineers coming here for study. Right? But they're studying economics. What? And it's a unitary institute, single discipline. How do we integrate multidisciplinary there? Right? That is, these challenges exist for everywhere. Can we expect that we are going to introduce some kind of engineering, okay, commerce, okay, management, okay with institute. But But can we introduce language courses over there? Can we think of introducing music courses over there, performing arts? But there is an opportunity for your discipline is not necessarily you can go. This is again a random thought that I'm sharing. It's not that your institute will go with align with engineering or something, but you can definitely tie up with performing arts, which is employable. That is multidisciplinary. It's not that you are going into all disciplines, but you can think of linkages with performing arts. You can think with the visual arts departments. You can think with lot of this our communication. I think this is again a random thought. I don't know the nuances of your subject, but I think there are, and that is why you go into that slide of multidiscipline where you talk with other disciplines and find out that what are the linkages. You don't think. If you start thinking, then it is cross-disciplinary.
अभी जैसे पहले जो पोस्ट ओरिएंटेड था 2020 से पहले 2019 तक हम 4 या स्पेसिफिक सब्जेक्ट्स पढ़ा रहे थे और लिमिटेड स्टाफ की उसकी जरूरत होता है। अभी एबीसी 2020 जैसे लागू कर दिया गया है, तो अगर कोई एकदम कंसर्न शास्त्र हमारे में अपनी की बता रहा हूँ, कंसर्न एक शास्त्र पढ़ रहा है, उसके साथ वह न्याय शास्त्र भी पढ़ रहा है, धर्मशास्त्र भी पढ़ रहा है और अलग शास्त्र भी पढ़ रहा है। 3 अलग-अलग शास्त्र को वो एक साथ एक कर रहा है। ये तो बहुत अच्छी बात है, सब्जेक्ट के लिए वो बहुत फ्यूचरिस्टिक है। लेकिन एक यूनिवर्सिटी में वर्तमान की स्थिति में गवर्नमेंट जो है, डेवलपमेंट के लिए गवर्नमेंट को डर लगता है क्योंकि जितने की अभी जितने भी यूनिवर्सिटी है और जितने भी आईआईटी है, आईआईएम है, जितने भी है, प्रायः 90 to 80% को कंट्रोल गेट काम पे फैकल्टी कर रहे हैं। मैक्सिमम तो मैक्सिमम और परमानेंट फैकल्टी को ना के बराबर ये रह गए हैं। तो ऐसी स्थिति में क्वालिटी ऑफ एजुकेशन हम बच्चों को कैसे डिलीवर करेंगे? क्योंकि वो जो अटेम्प्ट कोर्स आता है वो आ जाता है, सब चला जाता है, और तो नया टीचर आता है। तो और आया कुछ टीचर की वो नहीं था, टीचर तो जो है कि और दूसरी किसी को आया नहीं वो आपको पढ़ा रहा। तो बच्चों को स्टूडेंट्स के लिए जो भविष्य में हम क्यों कर रहे हैं, एबी 2020 लागू कर दिया, फिर कोई फैकल्टी रिक्वायरमेंट कितना है हमने देखा नहीं, इतने फैकल्टी साहब को चाहिए ये हमने जजमेंट किया नहीं, और पूरा सरकार में एकदम से स्टूडेंट्स को वर्क होती है। और एबी 2020 को लागू करने के लिए फिलहाल के लिए अभी सारा सिस्टम एडॉप्ट नहीं किया, एकदम से यूनिवर्सिटी को छोड़ दिया है और यूनिवर्सिटी ने तुरंत उसको एडॉप्ट कर लिया। फैकल्टी नहीं है, कोई है पेपर है जो कि ऑनलाइन को ऑनलाइन कर करके एग्जाम दे करके गवर्नमेंट के बैंक में जमा कर सकता है। वो यूनिवर्सिटी को प्रोपोज किया कि नहीं आप इसको ही पढ़ाएंगे, सुबह 10 बजे से लेकर के 6 बजे तक कोर्सेज चलाए जा रहे हैं। तो एक बच्चा 10 बजे आता है और 6 बजे जाता है यूनिवर्सिटी से, तो उसमें बच्चों को कितना क्वालिटी ऑफ एजुकेशन मिलेगा? एक टीचर जो कि 3 या 7 क्लास तक मैक्सिमम दे सकता है पर यूजीसी है, और इतना भी तो एनफ होता है कि क्वालिटी एजुकेशन। लेकिन अभी एक टीचर को 8 क्लास है, 7 क्लास है, इससे भी मोर ऑफिशियल वर्क्स होते हैं और एकेडमिक वर्क्स होते हैं, वो भी करता है। तो वो क्वालिटी एजुकेशन कहां से प्रोवाइड करता है? तो हम बच्चों के साथ सारे एलिजिबिलिटी देंगे तो सोच करके क्या बच्चों को हम ऑलरेडी करेंगे, हम पूरी जिम्मेदारी है यूनिवर्सिटी की जिम्मेदारी है।
What is this? What you are saying, I agree. And that is why I wrote resource mobilization. Whatever you are talking, whether it's teacher, whether it's infrastructure, whether it's online, this is resource. So how do you mobilize your resource? And that is why the first point is when I spoke of way forwards, the previous slide to it. What did I finish off with the challenge? And let me tell you something. The points that you are saying is everybody knows. And everybody across the country is aware of it. But the point is, whenever there is something new, there are challenges. And transition is a very tough time. We are into a confusion. Right? Even I spoke to the ministry once. I said, just give me 100 crores. Give me 100 crores, I'm an economist. I'm an economist primarily. I'm not an NEP person. Right? You give me 100 crores, that is to my university, I will solve all the problems of NEP in Tripura. Then they say, Professor Bhomik, we understand, but for the time being, you manage with your internal resources. You give me 100 crores, I will set up, I have 50 affiliated colleges, I'll set up the infrastructure. I'll give 50 crores as a corpus, and with the 50 crores that I have, I'll set up, I have my plans. But the point is, they couldn't have that. I spoke directly to the education secretary, additional secretary higher education for this. You understand? But the point is now what the university, even the chairman of university says that see, this is a transition that we are all facing. We are all facing, and here the big challenge is, see, whatever the challenge that you are saying, and, and it's and remember, this is not just my point. My point is this one. For me, everything comes down to fund. Everything comes down to fund. Now, what is the issue? The issue is that is when it becomes important for the institution to act. It becomes important for the institution to act. You make your status report, you make your status assessment. Where do you stand? Often it is important that we say no. But again, as micro factors in the big system, we are not empowered. Right? We are all microorganisms in the big human higher education sector. Right? So the point is, but what happens? These microorganisms, when they combine together, some solutions come. Right? Once upon a time, could anybody imagine that online education could play such a big role? We did not know. But when we are thrust upon with lockdown, that was our savior. So many a times what happens is once we face a challenge, only then we face it, find out the solution. But yes, it's not that I face a challenge and immediately with a chutki bajate hi I'll get a solution. No. It's not. It's definitely an experience that we are undergoing. Right. But yes, your points are very well taken. No, the point is, I don't want anybody to be so pessimistic. If you think it beforehand that this is going to happen, this will happen. Don't think that this is going to happen. Think that what should we do so that this does not happen.
वो तो सही है कर लेकिन इतना करना वो हमारे माइक्रो लेवल पे थिंकिंग पे हम थिंकिंग एंड मीटिंग पे बोलने के लिए ही समझ रहते हैं लेकिन हायर एजुकेशन और अथॉरिटीज जो बैठे हुए हैं वो इस चीज को इंप्लीमेंट करने के लिए सोचते ही नहीं कि गांव में
I am not in a position to say that whether they think or they do not think.
As an economist, sir, आप economist हैं.
Yeah, I'm an economist. I might suggest solution. I might suggest solution that these are the steps. Because see, economists have been suggesting allocation of 6% of GDP, 6% of budgetary funds for education for many years. And this is nothing to do with this present government. This has been a suggestion from the 1970s. The maximum that the education and the health sector in aggregate got is 4.2% of the total budget. No, it's not minimum. Again, these are vague terms. What is minimum? We cannot say minimum, but this is less than required. Once a minimum means there is a कम कुछ नहीं है, इससे कम भी है, बहुत सारे सेक्टर को इससे भी कम मिलता है. But my point is, this is not sufficient to meet what we aspire. Now, this is where I didn't bring here. There are sessions about the finding opportunities at the beginning. And one of the major institutions which I think I brought it somewhere when we said about these issues. Yeah, when we talk about deficits and gaps, it's very important that institutions also are assigned to generate their own funds. Even government institutions. Even government institutions are asked to generate their own funds. Right. As simple as that. This is a central university. I've been working into a central university for many years. This is a new university. Uh, Even central universities face a lot of fund crisis. Yes.
internal generation, that is what government is talking about. There are revenue internally, and for infrastructure development, take room from Canada.
Yeah. So that is the funding structure, the financing structure is undergoing a big change. And UGC and all, very recently, probably by 2026, before March itself, we might be having HECI. HECI is Higher Educational Council of India, which is very likely to come up. Right. Now the point is, it's a competitive market, right? We are facing challenges, but what is the grim reality? There are a lot of, see, we are talking here from a backward region. But why is it that there is a tendency for increasing number of institutes, increasing number of private institutes, even in backward regions? How are they surviving? Are they following any different economic model? Yes. How to stay here? How many buses does HEI has that travels every day from here? Have you noted? 15 only. 50. Yeah. So that means there are students, there are people willing. So economics matters. Economics matters. Right. So what is the model? What is it? Why is it happening? Now, that is what I'm saying. The society is a very dynamic thing, na? The society is a very dynamic thing. Now, as simple as that, me as a student of the 1990s, the kind of philosophy that I had, my student in 2025s do not have that same philosophy. It's very simple. And I think this dynamism is also very important. Just tell me, means even today, I'm one of the earliest person in Tripura to have a mobile. Okay, I had mobile before mobile phones came to Tripura, right? But when I had mobile, the first mobile charges that I used to pay is 14 rupees 40 paisa for incoming calls. 14 rupees 40 paisa for incoming calls. Okay, what did we used to do? I used to see who has called up, not receive. Go to the next booth. PCOs were there. Call up with 2 rupees. Because receiving is 14 rupees. Calling is 2 rupees. That is cheaper. Things have changed. things have changed. Nowadays, the time that we spend over talking, we spend more time just viewing. Even 10 years back, how many of you could imagine that mobile would be your alternative, mobile phone would be your alternative money bag? If there was no demonetization, if there was no demonetization, would this catch up in such a big way? No. But again, this UPI is something which is one of the biggest contribution of India to the world. See, we talk of zero for India's contribution to the world. We talk about our ancient knowledge, right? We talk about Vedas. We talk about ahimsa. We have lot of things from our past which are contributions to the world. And I say it openly. 1000 years later, or 2000 years later, in this list, UPI will be added as contribution of India to the world. This is something we have, this technology is not something that we have adopted from other countries. This is our technology. But why did this pick up? Because of a forced situation of demonetization, because of a forced situation of COVID. If you did not have a smartphone, just think how would you spend those lockdown years? So necessity is the mother of invention. So here also I think we will come out with some kind of solution someday. Thank you. I think we can wind up.
Thank you very much, sir. On behalf of Central Sanskrit University Academic Campus as well as Faculty Development Center, I would like to offer my heartfelt gratitude to you for being with us, sir. In future also, sir, we will be having you in various sessions. We have various kinds of faculty development programs in future. We will see you again. We will have you again in one of those sessions. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. अभी हम थोड़ा एक टी ब्रेक ले लेंगे जो है टी ब्रेक है सर सभी